Hello and welcome back to the Visual Storytelling Podcast. My name is Fred Ranger. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're staying safe, creative, and that you're not letting all of this BS news coming to our ears right now affecting you. I know it's hard. I mean, I've been struggling with a lot of these recent news, but one thing that I can say is that I've used photography to basically stay sane, and I've used it as therapy. And this is a theme of today's podcast. It's a known fact that when you think about it, when all goes to hell, what we tend to do is overthink the situation. And that's very, very human. I mean, we're designed to fight, flight, or freeze, right? So when we see a threat like we're experiencing right now, different people have different ways to cope with the situation. But for me, and for a lot of creative actually, one way to stay sane and to kind of go beyond what's happening is to use your brain in different ways. And this is where I really find that photography is both meditative and to an extent can actually be therapeutic and a way to stay sane. So very, very simply, I bought a Leica Q2 a year ago. And as you can imagine, a year ago, it was right in the middle of the whole thing. I don't even want to name this thing anymore. But and I embarked on a journey. So I wanted to document, as much as I could, everything that was happening. The empty streets, my family doing something and cooking dinner, us playing games, doing a paid shoot with a barbershop, and so on and so forth. And so I did. And just the fact that during those minutes, hours, photographing, thinking about framing, light, story, and so on, just the fact that I was doing that, it basically, and I will say it out loud, it basically allowed me to not think about what was going on. And that's very powerful when you think about it. It's literally a piece of equipment. As a matter of fact, a little, well, I don't want to say point and shoot, but a little camera that you have with you that allows you to do that. And that's, not a Netflix series. Not that there's anything wrong with Netflix series. I love them all. But the fact that you're going out, that you're pushing your brain to create a different narrative than the one that's being told on the radio, in the newspaper, online, especially online. lots of different versions of reality online. So just the fact that you're using that piece of equipment in your hand, it's allowing your brain to feel better. So for me, this is where I can definitely say that photography is therapy at the end of the day. And it might not replace a real therapy with a professional, but for someone who struggles to not actually look at the news and not be influenced by it, I think it's definitely something that, if you're like me, you should look into. I mean, I started photography a long time ago, but it was for the pure joy of storytelling and capturing, my travels and documenting, doing some paid gigs here and there. But I never thought that one day I would say that photography is basically allowing me to stay almost, quote unquote, sane until further notice. So yeah, that's very powerful. I want to talk to you about a story that I captured on the streets of Montreal not that long ago. It was a night walk. I was alone. I had my Leica M6 with I think it was a 35, no, it was a 50 millimeter Sumilux. So I was getting, the low light performance and all this great stuff. But at one point I forgot about the gear or the actual theory of photography. I just was in a state of, I would say, a meditative state, pointing the camera, looking through the frame, and just clicking that shutter button. To be honest, not even knowing what the settings on the camera. I mean, I knew they were roughly right because, it was dark outside, so I had a pretty open aperture. I had a high ISO count, but again, I couldn't care less about the technicality of photography. I was more interested in the side effects of doing a walk alone. It was kind of cold. I was actually on the way up to meet a friend at a restaurant. Again, this is something that seems very unique right now, going to meet people in restaurants. We're about to enter a semi-lockdown in Montreal, Canada next week. Anyways, still TBD. But the act of capturing stories that were unfolding in front of me, I cannot express how therapeutic that was. At the end of the day, the photos were not that good. I mean, there's one or two. If you go on my Instagram feed at Fred Ranger, you'll see that there are a couple photos from that night of street photography in Montreal. But I wasn't shooting to get a banger shot or to get a portfolio type image. I was literally walking the streets, having some fresh air, and capturing some stories that were unfolding in front of my eyes. So again, this is something that I really invite you to consider as a hobby or something you get a little bit more serious about if you are at least a little bit creative and you like storytelling, movies, of course, if you like photography. But pick up a camera. Any camera. Could be a very entry-level one. Could be, heck, a disposable one. But trust me, go outside. While you don't feel like it, actually, that might actually be the best way to do it, because I didn't feel like leaving home because we've been home for the past 2 years and it's easier to stay home, to open the TV, to watch Netflix. Whereas here, I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to kick my butt. I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to go like, hey, let's meet up. Let's grab a drink. And on the way in, I'll kick my ass and just bring the camera and walk the streets and try to find something or try to shoot something. But again, in the end, it's one of the most interesting experiences I've had over the past few weeks in terms of photography and storytelling and so on and so forth. So I'm rambling a bit, but I really want to get that message across that if you have a creative outlet, if you are, creative, don't have to be an artist. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are creative a bit, man, don't underestimate the power of investing some time and effort into the art form or the artisanerie, like we say in French, that you have in front of you, because you'll feel good. I mean, at least I felt good. So the only thing I can do is share my experience. But I would be interested in learning the psychology behind it. You do yoga and you do meditation and relaxation. Of course, you'll feel, at least for the majority of people, less stress and rejuvenated and all these great things after you've done it. But who would have thought, and maybe I'm late to the party. I'm probably late to the party. But who would have thought that going out, doing some unintentional or just walking around the streets of Montreal or whatever the city you're in, shooting photos could be that therapeutic. And I didn't know I needed that much until I did it. That's my other thing. Don't wait until your brain is completely exhausted by work, by the news, by everything that's happening, family, and so on and so forth. Don't wait until you don't have any energy left to go out and shoot. Pick up that camera, I'm holding the camera in my hand right now for those who are listening to the audio version of this, and go out and shoot. That's the, again, for me, the best thing that happened over the past few weeks. And yes, sometimes you need a kick in the butt to do it, because it's more cozy and comfy to stay home and to watch Netflix or Prime or whatever. So that's the first point I wanted to discuss today, about photography being literally therapy for me, and it might actually be for you. So try it, and you know what? Send me some feedback. You can hit me up on Twitter at FredRanger, or you can send me an email, hello@fredranger.com. So just HELLO @fredranger.com, and let's start a conversation. Let's start a real conversation about the benefit of photography. And I know if you're a working photographer, you might not feel like going outside on the weekend or at night after a long day of work, shooting, models or products or food or whatever. But I bet you, if you put a different mindset and maybe a different camera, that for me, that's the reason why these little Leica cameras, the M6 on the film side and the Q2 on the digital side, and the N10, that's why they don't look or feel or make me think about work. They make me think about pleasure, therapy, fun, relaxation, connection, and stories. So, wow. This is kind of an homage to small portable cameras. The Fujifilm, same thing for the X100 and so on. It's not the brand that matters. It's the actual act of having a camera always with you and being able to do this type of activity. So, again, that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing is about the upcoming weeks. I'm torn about social media, and I'm not the only one, I know. But this is something I wanted to open up about, because this podcast is about creativity, storytelling, and so on. But it's also about finding answers to some questions of the moment. And at this very moment, there is an enormous pressure for creative and especially photographers, videographers to share their work and to get the attention that they deserve, or to sell their ETFs or EFTs, NFTs, sorry, to sell their NFTs and so on. And I'm debating in my head, should I go out of this realm and try to create my own? I mean, I'm already doing it with my newsletter. If you're not subscribed, you can do so. The links will be in the show notes and in the description. But to focus more on that than Instagram or any other platform, Twitter and so on and so forth, I'm torn, and here's why. The Instagram platform is probably one of the most interesting one, not for the feed aspect of it, but for the DM aspect of it. So made a lot of connections with very interesting people, with brands, with organizations, magazines, and so forth. So that I really like. But the feed aspect of it, the fact that, it's a free platform, so you're the product aspect of it, this is where I'm not sure if it's viable in the long run. And knowing that Instagram is no longer a real photo platform, it's more of a video/reels platform, it's making me think even more about that type of thing. So I want to hear from you. I want to open up a conversation about how do you see social media as a creative person, especially Instagram, and even I'll throw in Twitter in there. I'll leave the other platforms alone, like the 500px and Flickr and so on, because I think they're kind of unique and they are actually dedicated to photography, although they have some struggles too and some cons and some pros. But for me, it's more the big platforms, so Instagram and Twitter. I'm not even mentioning Facebook, because for me, Facebook is dead in my head. It's just a way to update family, I believe. But you might think otherwise. Maybe you have a huge business and interactions on Facebook, and I respect that. But yeah, Instagram. So that's the first part. And how about building your own community? I think it was Dan Milner who just released a film not that long ago about how he decided to kill his Instagram account. He had like several thousand people on his account, and to focus on AG23, AG27. I forgot the name of his company, but again, just to focus on building a real community that he quote unquote controls, and he's not, dependent on a middleman like a social platform. So it made me think, and it made me think real hard, because that was kind of why I got into social media, to have a sense of community, to exchange with like-minded people. But do you really need those platforms? That's something that I want to ask me and you as creators. Should we keep investing time, effort, and money, quite frankly, into those platforms? I don't know. Also, Ulysses Aoki, I think it's his name, also on YouTube, just released a film too about why he's quitting. Well, he's not quitting social media or YouTube or anything like that, but he's quitting the rat race, or the infinite circle of gear reviews or educational photography, video, and so on and so forth, because that was what people were expecting from him. Too much, to a point where any video or a post that he would be making about himself, about his life, and photography for him is like 1/5, I think he was saying in this video, of his whole revenue streams and so on, or his whole life. So every time he was posting something about himself or not about photography, he would get shit for it. People would actually criticize him. And that's very weird in this day and age. Like, it's supposed to be about connections, about exchanging ideas, about being part of a community, but then it's really closed. Like, it's not open. You have to have a brand. And by the way, I used to be a big proponent of build your brand online. I even coached, people and creatives and organizations on how to create a brand online. Won some awards or whatever. Who cares? But now that I'm thinking about it, and that we're into like 20 years of social media, I mean, it started maybe not 20 years ago, but almost. It's making you think, man. It's making you think about, where is this thing going? Why are we investing so much time, effort in exchange of very, very little return? And we keep helping those platforms grow and make more profit. I mean, that's not a big reveal if I tell you that those companies are in it for the profit, and you are the product as a user, and you are a donator, if I can say, if you're publishing your work and what you produce on those platforms. So it's food for thought, definitely. And I invite you to also open up the conversation about that, because I'm interested in learning more about how you think about it as a creative, and what should we do about it? Spending more time building meaningful connections outside of those platforms, or are we dependent on those platforms these days to continue existing even as a creative mind? Again, as you can see, I don't have the answer. And it's probably the beauty of it, and this is probably why I want to continue doing things like podcasting, like I'm doing right now, video on YouTube, because I do find YouTube as a platform where you can, quote unquote, express yourself more freely. You don't have to have one specific brand, although some creator might be trapped in that problem of being seen as just one angle person on YouTube. I don't know. We can debate. Hit me up through email. I will preach what I'm saying. I won't send you to any of my social platforms, although I did, just because I'm conditioned to do it. This is how crazy it is. But I invite you to send me an email, just like in the good old days, at hello@fredranger.com, hello@fredranger.com, or to subscribe to my newsletter so you can see or read what's in my mind. You can be informed of the content I hate that word, but it is what it is, content that I'm producing over the months. You can see the photos that I'm taking. When I say that, photography is therapy, what do I mean by that? Well, you can actually see what I mean by that. And we can have a conversation, either through email. Maybe I'm going to start having some guests on this podcast. I think it would be better than just me rambling for, 20 minutes in. Yeah, having some guests. I mean, I just hooked up with a friend from LA he's just back from LA. He's down in Montreal. He's a photographer, and he's also going through this reflection of, what's next? Should he keep doing and pushing the same type of work he's been for the past, 10 years? Or should he reinvent himself and try something new? So people like that have questions, some answers, some experience, maybe we can bring it on to the show if you like the idea. Please make sure to subscribe to this podcast, either if you're on the audio version, so please do it on your podcast app, or if you're on the video version of it on YouTube, you can subscribe to know when we are releasing new content. So that's pretty much it for me. I've enjoyed going back behind the microphone. Been releasing a lot of videos on YouTube lately, but not a lot of podcasts. So I want to go back to investing more time in this audio format. I think it's intimate. I like it. I feel like we can create a connection outside of the noise that is social media. And if we build a strong enough community, maybe we can support each other through this medium. And like I said, if you're interested in being on the podcast, let me know. And maybe we can have a discussion, open discussion, that other can benefit from. So stay safe, stay creative. Just wanted to let you know, if you're still listening, that I released a zine. That's also something that's dear to my heart. Publishing or printing photos more than releasing them on social. So if you're interested, the link will also be down below. You'll be able to see it's a nice, really nice shoot that I was able to do in Silo Numero 5 in Montreal, Canada. It's one of the oldest and the biggest, building where they were doing some, I think it was some oats or something. But yeah, it was all in decay and it was super, super freaky. Everything was there still. Like if they quit on one day and we could get access 20 years later and things are still there, but everything is decaying. And if you know me, I like this type of photography. So anyways, I've been Fred Ranger. Enjoy life. Be happy. And stay creative. Cheers.